This is the Check for Traps podcast, inviting young children everywhere to try free samples of crack cocaine and the Communist Manifesto. Okay, so we've both been to see the new Boots Riley movie, the first Boots Riley movie, Sorry to Bother You.
A phrase that you will use when you're annoying someone via a telemarketing call.
That's
it
right.
Comes up quite a lot.
A phrase that we are all familiar with from our personal lives, if you're a millennial.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we were both quite invested in this. I mean, we both worked in call centres.
That's right. As do almost, or have, everyone that we know.
Yeah. Everyone below the age of 30 that I know, I think. We're going to start with our expectations of Sorry to Bother You. In saying our expectations, I guess we'll get more of a sense of our connection to this film, why I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Joss? I know obviously you've known Boots Riley for longer and more passionately than I have.
That's right.
So.
I mean, there were times in my teenhood where Boots Riley was just one of my favourite artists, just because his albums with The Coup, Genocide and Juice specifically, he was quite explicitly a hard leftist, and he made his music about that, but he managed to fuse this with hip-hop. And then also, big fan of Rage Against the Machine. I like Tom Morello's career following that as the Night Watchman, and then they actually did a 2-album stint as the Street Sweeper Social Club together, and their music they did together was extremely political, obviously very leftist.
I've actually listened to the Street Sweeper Social Club, and I didn't know until you just said that was anything to do with Boots Riley, which is absolutely terrible.
Boots is the lyricist. They got together. Boots recorded raps on a tape deck and mailed them to Tom Morello, who would record solos on another tape deck, and they were mailing each other music in this ridiculous fashion for a while. And then we got Street Sweeper, who...
That's quite beautiful.
Yeah. So he's been vaguely ever present in the music that I listened to towards the end of my adolescence. And then I think last year or this year, out of nowhere, the man was releasing a film, and I thought that was bizarre. But I was very pleased to see what he was going to do, because he's a passionate and opinionated man. I might not agree with him on everything, but yeah.
Well, that's right. And as such, you were excited for the film, or at least you knew you were going to see it. I remember talking about it. I remember you being unsure if it was going to get released, and obviously it's had a way wider release than either of us thought it was going to get.
That's right, because I remember, Black Klansman earlier this year, Boots Riley, I don't know if it was a stunt, but he essentially posted a very negative review of the third act of that movie, based around the fact that it purports itself to be a non-fiction film, but actually everything that tied together the themes at the end was made up. That gained a lot of traction, and he compared it unfavourably with his own film, saying, well, Sorry to Bother You was good. At that time, he wasn't sure if it was going to get a UK release, and yeah, that was the first I knew of the film. I wanted to see what he was going to do, because he isn't an established filmmaker, and it's good to know that people can get into this if they try hard enough, and I know that he's had this screenplay, he's been sitting on it for, 8 years, thereabout.
Yeah, and may I say, in terms of the film, one of my expectations was that it was going to look really quite rough. And it doesn't. It looks like a film.
No, I completely agree. And I was aware that it was cheap in some ways, but even just the colour palettes of the film everything had great personality. Yeah. Every setting.
It's great sound. I mean,
there's
some of those scenes are really hard to do. Like there's riots in it. There's some pretty good CGI that we'll get into later.
That's right.
Which I wasn't expecting at all. There was quite good casting. There was Glenn from Walking Dead, and there was Danny Glover, and there was Terry Crews.
Yeah.
They weren't cheap individuals.
No, they weren't at all. Armie Hammer, who I love, and I love every time I see him in a comedy film, I love him grows. The Hammer-sance is something that's occurring. I think that's something that you identified for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see him again.
So yeah, that's one of my expectations that it shattered. Unlike you, in fact, I learnt of Boots Riley through you, basically.
Yeah.
He's never I'd heard of, but it wasn't until you told me this film's coming out that I started listening to The Coup. And clearly I'd listened to him previously, just hadn't realised, which I feel kind of stupid for, but no better way to discover that than while recording. I knew it was going to fill a niche that I'd not seen before.
Definitely.
And whether for better or for worse.
I will say one final thing about this. I think that the first Coup song I ever heard was Fat Cats and Bigger Fish. And what I liked about Fat Cats and Bigger Fish is that it's a very down-to-earth story of a man essentially just waking up in the morning and going out hustling, but the way the story escalates, it ends up having an explicitly Marxist lilt, and I enjoyed how believable the character in it was and how he represented Boots' politics. It was just a good piece of propaganda, and I do respect that. There's nothing wrong with good propaganda. It's always interesting to pick apart. So knowing that he was going to tackle the call centre environment, which is something that we've all kind of been through, I was really looking forward to the catharsis of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, unless you're like 60 and listening to this, in which case you've probably never been through it.
That's right, and
But
also an arsehole.
And there were quite, well, I can say there were, like, I don't know if you looked at the, like, demographics of the cinema, like, as ever, and so we go to, independent film cinema called The Watershed, which relies on massive council grounds. And I always see, whenever I'm like seeing a new niche film, there's always old people in there, and that makes me kind of happy. And there were quite a few in, I don't know if you look behind us, we were sitting quite near the front. There was quite a lot of old people. I did wonder what they were getting, not what they were getting from this, because that makes it seem like they can't enjoy it. But I was like, yeah, props to them. I'm glad they were seeing it. But I would love to see their opinion on it. I'd love to interview some of them, talk to some of them.
They weren't compelled into that cinema seat by an expectation of, shared experience. They just wanted to see what he had to say, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's great seeing just people with no connection to a film like that.
Unless they all love The Coup.
Oh man, I would love that so much.
He's really popular. They're like 60 plus. Like, he's on all the cruise ships.
Oh, they fucking love it, man. Yeah. Walk up to a pensioner and say, all right, bang, right now, 4 bars of booze. They'll bust into it.
Each of them can lay out. That guy in the tweed suit behind us, he'd be spitting it out, no problem. But yeah, so let's get on to that thing where we describe the plot but discuss it as well. Begins in, the first scene is perhaps one of my favourite scenes in it.
But he's interviewing him for a position as a telemarketer, and the movie gives you everything you need to know very quickly. He clearly needs the job. He says this himself, and he's
converted his football trophies into Employee of the Month trophies.
Yep.
And it just so happens that the guy who he's trying to dupe into thinking that he's got like quite an accomplished office CV actually worked in the offices that he claims to have worked at, / can see that it's quite clearly an edited football trophy.
That's right.
But he doesn't give a shit, because as he says, he only needs to be able to read and show some initiative.
And he says that in trying to dupe him in this way, he has shown both of those skills. So the first scene alone twists you like twice. It's very funny.
And I don't know about you, but when I went to an agency and they referred me to these places, then I did get the impression, despite being fresh out of university, I did get the impression was that only 2 things were required of me, and that was to speak English and to be able to read.
I completely agree. At that time, when you're desperately looking for a job, you have a feeling, an expectation that it's going to be quite difficult. However, the slimy recruitment person on the other side of the desk just cannot wait. They're just reassuring you it's going to be completely fine. And it will be completely fine in the sense that there's no way you are underqualified for what you're about to do, but it won't be completely fine in that it's soul-destroying in a way that you have not realised before.
Yeah. I think, and so yeah, that bit really, not only did it really hit home, it was very true to life, it was really funny. I think that was sort of like, I don't want to say like the purest distillation of what it was going for, but yeah, it was a proof of concept for the film. I was like, I'm sold. I was like, that was great. And then from there, it moves to his Tessa Thompson. So I thought this was weird. I find it funny that Adonis Creed and
Cassius
Green have the same girlfriend.
Absolutely.
He's gonna, when Adonis Creed finds out, he's gonna fucking destroy that guy.
Fucking smash him to pieces. Yeah. So he's to establish he lives in his uncle's garage with Tessa Thompson, who is a leftist artist. He's got this job.
He himself is sort of a leftist by default. Almost like it's implied to begin with.
I think his leftist politics are received rather than kind of learned or ingrained. I think it's just the people around him.
He doesn't have the class consciousness, so to speak.
No.
He just knows that he was like a high school football star, and that since then he's had a pretty rough ride, and as such he identifies with her leftist rhetoric. But as we will discover, his faith in that will be tested throughout the film.
That's right. He has a little rant at his uncle that's been all over the trailers, where he accuses him of hoarding all the wealth for him and his family, for obviously the reveal is that they're actually related. However, again, the exploration of his character for Cassius Green, he believes these things are issues when they affect him directly, but as he moves through different environments, he is ideologically malleable.
And massively so.
Yes.
In a very relatable way as well, I might say. Like,
and everyone has to watch that in themselves. He gets the job in the telemarketing firm. He's not very good at it at first. Danny Glover gives him a tip, which is that he needs to adopt his white voice. He begins using this white voice. He starts to change as a person, and then opportunities start being made available to him while the rest of his co-workers are actually showing, rising discontent. They want to have benefits for everyone, whereas he is being shown a path where he can make things better for himself, but himself alone. And I think that's the central conflict of the middle of the film.
He's shown like a sort of like a Charlie Kaufman-esque golden elevator that you can go up through. This film is as if the Wayans brothers and Charlie Kaufman got together, and in the best way possible. With the utmost respect to both of those people.
The best of both worlds. I would completely agree with
that.
I
think, and again, it made me want to see that film because I think, they really like if the Wayans brothers had just received like a 101 in Marxism from Charlie Kaufman, they'd done it with their unsubtle golden elevator door. It worked so perfectly.
Yeah, you know what? The sort of the pageantry and the world building actually reminded me quite a bit of Terry Gilliam. And I mean that in a very favourable way.
It was very subtle, but it was subtle in a way. It was always telling you that the world he lived in wasn't quite our world, but it was recognisably ours.
Yeah,
like there's one of the main factions within the film is a corporation that you see littered throughout the film called Worry Free, in a lot more subtler way than in Looper, where there's that fucking psych ops
people with their pennies
institution.
Yeah.
And they are basically the deal is, correct me if I'm wrong, that you sign up to a life contract.
That's right.
And you never need to worry about food or rent
or just
employment.
Money. I mean, your financial stress is, you abdicate financial responsibility. You will work on what is clearly a factory line where, I mean, it's not said this way, but you don't control the means of production, and then they'll give you bed and board, and
it's all run by Armie Hammer as this beautifully new age capitalist man.
Best role he's ever had, by the way.
I mean, I put it up there with Free Fire, which I know you haven't seen, but I keep telling you to watch. But he has a sort of a man from a corporation in the 80s.
Yeah.
That he was really born out of time.
He's got he does. He has the face and just the air of a Gordon Gekko wannabe from from Wall Street, from Boiler Room.
Yep.
From Wolf of Wall Street.
Someone takes themselves entirely too seriously.
Yep.
And it's from the roles that he was put in originally. I imagine that was how he was raised, and he's really used it to his advantage.
Yeah.
Because he looks and acts the part.
You were telling me that Boots Riley had he said that Armie Hammer is the perfect face for new age capitalism. He's the boss that doesn't want to be your boss, he wants to be your friend.
Like a sort of Hank Scorpio from The Simpsons.
Absolutely.
He's like, oh, well, we'll install the hammock store just for you.
That's a brilliant comparison, actually. He and all bosses like him are the Hank Scorpios of your life. He makes Cassius, him feel included, and he tells him that he's awesome, and this makes him want to do things for him, when really he is just a pawn in his game.
And again, Cassius has some indications that everything's not fine, but he knows he has to sort of put up with it if he wants money, and that is what he wants at the end of the day. And I think that's really, and it's never really apologetic. It doesn't ever not want money, as far as I can tell. It's always his aim, but I think it's just how he sort of
mediates it.
Yeah, exactly how he deals with it.
I just wanted to say with the voice thing, he adopts his white voice. It's strongly implied. I was saying to you earlier, I think strongly implied that it's about him compromising his identity, and then when he comes face to face with Armie Hammer's character, he has to do that on a level much larger than the one before, because Armie Hammer tries to make him rap, sort of for his and his cronies' entertainment.
His entirely white crony base.
Yeah.
But except for the other power cooler, I think.
Just that one guy. What's his name again, Aaron?
Mr. Beep.
Mr. Beep. Yeah.
Oh, you mean his actor's name?
Yeah.
Oh, Amari Hardwick.
He was good, but he capitulates in a very, very... I mean, I don't really know how to describe the scene, but I was gritting my teeth through it, but also found it hilarious.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's so incredible, I don't think we can... I wouldn't want to, say it. I think
I won't spoil it.
Interesting fact, actually, sorry. Do you know who does Cassius's white voice?
Is it David Cross?
Cool.
I know the other white voice, I believe, is Patton Oswalt.
I only know him as Tobias from...
Tobias Funke.
from Arrested Development.
Oh, no, he's brilliant. He's a stand-up comedian. Oh. He's got some great specials from the 90s. I think he's still doing them now.
The 90s?
Yeah. He was in Men in Black, David Cross. Do you remember?
No.
He's the guy who asks Cockroachy Man to stop ringing the damn bell.
I saw Men in Black in German 15 years ago.
Fair enough, man. He gets him to stop ringing the bell, and then he won't stop because he's trying to get his attention. And then later, when the Men in Black show up on the scene, David Cross has been, I don't know, cockroach jizzed to the ceiling, and that's his role.
So he adopts the white voice. Again, I considered this one of not many missed opportunities, because that makes it sound like it was an overly a disappointment.
There was a lot going on.
I guess the positive spin on that was I wanted more of it, or I wanted it to be 3 separate films that each focused on a bit. And again, like I said to you earlier, I feel like maybe he was thinking he might not get another one, and that's entirely reasonable. Yeah. Especially considering, as we both laughed through the opening credits of this, where there are 9 seven or nine production companies.
Yeah, production companies. It felt like a gag from Tropic Thunder or something, like a parody trailer, because I've never seen a movie that is in any way decent have that many production credits, or even any movie full stop, to be honest.
Yeah, what it reminded me is when really low budget British films. But yeah, so like it struck me like that, like a low budget British production is the only thing I know that has anything over 5 companies.
Yeah.
Boots went up with his hat to as many as possible, and it worked. I mean, like I said, like I was amazed with that many influences that it was as coherent as it was.
Again, it just served to confuse me more, because I would have thought that many people with a financial interest in the film compromised the vision. But I guess he spread it out over so many people that they maybe didn't have too much money in it to bother him.
I guess when everyone's only got an 8 or like a 9, you can't really throw your weight around as much. Which is ingenious. Though again, I can't imagine Cinereach is making many, like, particularly ostentatious demands. If you just pay them enough to keep the lights on, they're probably pretty happy.
They were so happy when a famous person showed up saying they wanted to make a movie.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like I was amazed that like 7 to 8 production companies knew who Boots Riley was to actually to fund him.
Maybe when they're off the job, they're all massive Marxists.
Maybe the guy in the tweed suit, he was like, he was there, he's like, shit, it's you, I love you, I love your work, man.
He starts rapping at him.
He meets Omari Hardwick, who is referred to as Mr. Beep, for reasons that I don't know. I think.
I was waiting for that to be resolved.
Yeah, it never got revealed.
They literally bleeped the name, and they made a point of it wasn't just one gag. They came back to it several times. Yeah.
And he's like a really mysterious looking dude. He's got like so he's like a really ostentatious looking dude. He's always wearing waistcoats and like really nice suits. I guess that bit might just be his visual imagery as a power cooler. But again, none of the other power coolers look like that. I was expecting them all to be insane characters, but the rest of them just look like white men and women in suits.
Corporates, yeah. No, I really enjoyed his costume. Yet again, looked like he walked straight out of a Terry Gilliam movie. He was entertaining, just stood still. He was such a strange, bizarre presence. You first saw him at a distance in the elevator with the doors closing. Yeah,
and he looks nothing like he does in either real life or in any other film. So I don't know what inspired them to go down that route. Yeah. I can only assume they were sort of like riffing until they got to that. And it worked, it really did.
What you were saying, Stanley, was you were sort of talking, to jump back, all of the different themes in the movies that you felt like they weren't fully explored, and I think
he was one of them, definitely.
Yeah. So this film is, it's about lots of things. It's about capitalism, but it's also in a kind of aborted way about racial identity. But considering the whole white voice thing is the driving force in the trailers and also in the plot,
it's the main, what distinguishes his ability to do it. Despite the fact he doesn't seem to do it any differently from Danny Glover, his ability to do it is what's exceptional of him. That is what makes him remarkable, and it's his ability to be the white man's boy, so to speak, is what does it. And again, and the reason that I say I think that it needed to be fleshed out more is like twofold. It's you've already remarked on this, but it's the scene where Omari Hardwick's character, the power cooler, speaks in his black voice, which I was waiting for him to do. I knew it was going to be a big moment when it happened, and when it did happen, it was very satisfying. And as well as that, there's also a moment where his leftist girlfriend is trying to sell art. She's like a sign spinner. She's got an equally shit job to him, and she's like trying to sell her art. She set up a gallery, and when she walks in, she's been criticizing him for the white voice, and she walks in, she's doing the exact same fucking thing. And I thought that was perfect. I was very aware of them, but again, like nothing, not developed. Like you could make an entire film out of that, and I think it's sad it didn't get the attention I feel it deserved. I think it merited more.
Absolutely, and when we have to, I mean, this is kind of the headline. This is Boots Riley's first film, and it's also his first screenplay. Like, he's a musician, so there are problems, but they're all the problems that you would expect, and he has dealt with them very gracefully. I think that him not having the confidence to know which of these themes to double down on the most is completely understandable, given the circumstances. Well, yeah, I guess we'll move into the big twist.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the third act, which I said it's about halfway through the third act, but it might be a bit sooner than that. What do you think?
No, well,
because I feel like the third act is when he meets Armie Hammer.
Yeah.
Like when he dominates power cooling, and like when he's isolated all his friends, like you hit sort of like the low point of the movie where he's become an internet sensation because he gets hit in the head with a cola can.
Crossing a picket
line. Which, again, was trying to say so much in, like, but completely abandoned almost. Like, there's a bit where he becomes, like, an internet sensation. And again, like, completely aborted, really. Armie Hammer's about to introduce him to the real Worry-Free. And Boots Riley really needs to go and pee, I think. That's the motivation.
You said Boots Riley.
No, shit, sorry.
Cassius Green needs to go pee.
Cassius Green needs to go pee.
The avatar for Boots.
He gets told to use the Jade door.
That's right, he says the Jade door. He's been been led through a door full of the same kind of green door.
Yeah, there's so many different... Well, there's subtly different green doors. That's what makes it really funny.
Fair enough. He said that. I couldn't see a difference, but that was a brilliant gag.
Well, I thought it was really funny. Yeah, because I remember seeing like 4 different doors, each of which was like a variation of green. And I thought that was amazing. And so again, like in a sort of Kaufman-esque fashion, he goes through.
And this was where the movie, right? Say what you will, criticism of this film, but I did not see this coming, and I have not been so shocked. Because you can do things that are shocking, like you can jump out from behind a door. But this film escalated in a way that I really applauded. He's being spoken to from behind what looks like a toilet cubicle, someone asking in a disturbingly desperate voice if he can help them. And he says no, he's not interested, which I think really kind of underlines Cassius as a character at that point. And then out of that door falls a fucking giant cross between a horse and a person with a fucking swinging todger who is suffering and chained up and speaking English.
Bearing in mind, you've gone from like sort of like literally one door away is like a really plush mansion sort of setup. It's utterly, it just switches like that. Like
it was deliberately stark.
Yeah.
It was dreamlike.
And yeah, he's like scrambling on the floor, and then other horsemen arrive.
He looks, off camera and sees that there's other ones in open stalls, and they're all just terrified, and he's terrified, and we're terrified.
He's screaming. He drops his phone, and he jets. He's like trying to get out of there, and then Armie Hammer arrives, and drags him back into the office, and he's like, well,
chastises him for using the olive door,
which again an amazing and I think that's one of the things that make this film like. For all its criticism of not developing enough, for what there was in there, like everything was layered really nicely on top of each other. Like you had multiple conflicting jokes about, like again, the pretension of new capitalism and like race identity and all that. It like worked really well. It blended together really nicely. And then he takes him back to the office. He's like, "Well, if you'd only just watched the video, then you would understand all this and you wouldn't be freaked out. You dummy." He's like, you're the idiot here. You not understanding the horseman is the real problem here.
And he says, I'm not the bad guy. And the thing is the point is Armie Hammer believes that because of the system that he's a part of. He genuinely thinks that if he shows him this video, which essentially shows that he has a plan to turn the people who are already essentially his captive slaves into like horse hybrid work machines, and he just thinks that that's absolutely fine.
Yep. He can't, and he not only does he think that's absolutely fine, he thinks that will be to the overall benefit of society.
Yeah.
And he also feels that everything can like be succinctly explained in corporate videos.
Yes.
He views that as entirely reasonable.
Yeah.
I guess it's implied that the people of Worry Free aren't actually worry free.
No. No, certainly
which
not.
Again, we don't really get much of a glimpse into the Worry Free structure. All we have is like
the propaganda.
A propaganda video where they are all in these little, like, horrible little bunk beds with they're eating their food and, like, nodding along that they're really happy.
And they're talking, yes.
It's like an MTV Cribs parody.
It is exactly, I was going to say, it's exactly like Cribs, and they're talking about how they're bawling.
Proves Boots Riley's age nicely, I think.
And I think that was interesting to me, actually, because it was almost, some of them in the videos looked uncomfortable, but what Armie Hammer and Worry Free as a company had done to them is create a cultural climate so difficult and stressful that some of them were actually really, really relieved to have entered this environment of serfdom.
It sets up why it would be appealing to do so. Terry Crews is like, I would be a lot easier if I just joined Worry Free, and Cassius is like, you shouldn't do that.
Well, it's because it's not all brilliantly developed, and some of the Worry Free stuff, like Terry Crews' character, kind of just shows up and talks about how he's having financial trouble and how Worry Free may be a good solution to that.
It almost feels like Terry Crews is a good way to like sort of set the world. Like you said, there's the funny joke about him being an uncle, but other than that, it's sort of like it's almost on the presence that his uncle happens to be Terry Crews and is called Sergio.
Yes.
And there's another. He's only ever referenced like one other time, I think, when he gets his first Power Caller paycheck, and Terry Crews just like bear hugs him because he's so happy. Armie Hammer gives him a figure after he was shown in the horse video.
Yeah.
And it just says like I owe you, and then it's
$1 million and a smiley face.
Yeah, it was like there was more than I think it was like 100 million.
Oh,
it's like a huge amount. And basically, he offers him to be. This is again a bit of a weird one. I wasn't sure where he. Well, I get it, I think, but I wasn't sure like where he was going.
Just a few too many things going on. I think
the job offer was for him to be a horseman Martin Luther King Jr. And for him to be an outlet for the inevitable civil rights movement for horsemen that they could control, which is amazing.
He wanted to appropriate their maturation into wanting rights and freedom in a way that he would let it happen, but he would cultivate it to his own needs.
Yeah, and
terrifying.
I also felt like it was a weird criticism on Martin Luther King as like kind of criticizing the core part, like the NAACP's part of the civil rights movement.
I genuinely hope that the comparison to Martin Luther King just was what Armie Hammer's character would have said rather than Boots Riley.
Him misunderstanding Martin Luther King's role. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it could be that. I hadn't even considered that.
I would really hope that Boots Riley doesn't actually think that of Martin Luther King.
No,
I think that is a deeply insulting position to hold on the man.
No, I'd agree. That's why it was weird. That's why it was weird to me that I was like, oh, okay, so we are anti-Martin Luther King now. I feel like it was a level of abstraction too far for the scene, considering again, like you said, like earlier, you said we weren't sure how many horsemen there were. We weren't sure how far this program had gone. I didn't know if he was like predicting a problem like 6 stages down the line. It would kind of be like if I hired you to solve like my problem with the moon rock people, but obviously you don't even know I've got to the moon yet.
That's right.
So I'm like, Josh, I really need you to deal with these moon rock guys.
Yeah.
But you're just like, well, Aaron, what's the,
Well, are you already on the moon?
You've got to do a lot of exactly. You've got to do a lot of steps. There's a lot that raises so many more questions than it answers. Is going to raise.
The movie didn't bungle the landing by any stretch of the imagination because it was entertaining right up until the end. However, both got a sense that Boots wasn't sure how to end it.
I think that is, if I had to put a moment, that is where I started to be like, how is this ending? And again, I think that concludes the ending. Again, not a bad ending by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, perhaps one of the most memorable endings to a film I've seen in a while, but certainly not a clean landing.
So the problem with the film is this: it amps up the scope again and again to a point that you don't even expect, and then it stops being about the unionization of this call center or him being seduced by power calling, and then it actually starts being about, we said earlier, so it starts with compromising your identity in the micro with him doing the voice, and then that in the macro with people literally being turned into half human, half horse hybrids to suit the needs of their employers or owners. It becomes very big, but then becomes very small again because he frees some of the horses to help enforce a picket at his call center. The only concrete objective that was completed at the very end to me seemed to be that they unionized the call center and freed some of the horse people, but it begged the question, what about the rest of the horse people? How many were there? And they made a really good gag about how the government did not mind about Armie Hammer's research.
I think we were some of the only people laughing in that joke.
The exposure is only applauded.
And you see 2 Democratic senators and 2 Republican senators flanking Armie Hammer as he's like popping champagne, celebrating record stock rises. Like he's increased the Dow Jones or the FTSE or whatever by like a 1,000,000% or something. It's
again that's very funny.
It's so confusing though.
It's very funny, but then it begs the question, well, so does Armie Hammer, at the end of this, fine, they've unionised a call centre, but does he not now rule the world? Like, they don't resolve worry-free.
So
what did it mean?
Yeah, so the end set piece is there's a picket that's been constantly being, every day it gets breached and the power coolers get through. As Josh says, the horsemen are brought in to enforce the picket. They successfully enforce the picket, but then the security company puts Boots Riley, Cassius Green in a van.
I certainly hope you're not mixing black people up again.
No, not at all.
He only does that with women.
I'm not even going to deny that, actually. I think if people are going to start watching this, they should know that I just can't tell women apart.
Can't differentiate. Oh my god.
I really liked Grace Jones in this film. I thought she was really good.
Which one was Grace Jones?
It's a joke. Grace Jones is the Dolph Lundgren.
You've fucking done me. You've pulled me down.
Weirdly enough, actually, before I get in, actually, people are criticising this film because it didn't pass the Bechdel test. I need to say about that. That's I wanted your opinion on this.
That is very interesting.
I mean, in the comic the Bechdel test originally appeared in, it was sort of like a satirically low bar.
Yeah, so this is the problem I have. I believe in feminist criticism, specifically feminist criticism of films, because the writing's on the wall, problems with representation, films are mostly about men. That's not how stories should be told. They should be about everyone. But as an enormous fan of Alison Bechdel, I do think that people don't always understand the origin of the Bechdel test, and I don't think they would always use it in the same way if they did. No. It's a gag from the comic Dykes to Watch Out For. She is brilliant, but I don't think she intends for it to be used in this way. And
my famous criticism of the Bechdel test is that a personal favourite film of mine, Bikini Car Wash Company 2, passes the Bechdel test 17 times, I believe.
That's amazing.
Having watched it extensively to confirm that. I believe bikini. They talk multiple times, not about men, but about the Bikini Car Wash Company. They have several ones where their strip club is about to go bankrupt.
Oh my god!
And they need to. So I rate it as a mechanism, but I think it is often wrongly applied. It doesn't always show the results you want. And Boots Riley, the actual Boots Riley, because Cassius Green is a character who can't express complex thoughts and emotions.
That's right.
Not at least in response to stuff.
No.
Boots Riley said that he thinks, while it didn't pass the Bechdel test, and he thinks that is not regrettable, but sort of like, he understands that is a cause for concern. He thinks that Tessa Thompson's character is one of the most feminist and leftist characters he's seen portrayed. I think that's a good reason for why this film is unfair in its not passing the Bechdel test.
It's basically, the problem is it can be a good criticism, but then it can also just as easily be a cheap criticism. You know, you can portray an excellent female character with depth and nuance, and that doesn't necessarily mean that...
Just because she doesn't hold a conversation with another female character about anything that's not a man. And I don't think Tessa Thompson's character actually holds a conversation with another woman in that film.
She does talk to Stephen Yeun of The Walking Dead about some ridiculous aborted love triangle with Cassius Green / Boots Riley. That was so pointless.
Yeah, you could have spent a lot more time on other things.
This is one thing, actually. So we've said, sometimes, you know what, we might be a bit too nice. I get this is his first screenplay. I think Boots Riley is smart enough to not need the crutch of a love triangle, especially one that doesn't really go anywhere. Because
love triangles are like such a parody of a writing trope now. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you know what, people criticising this for not passing the Bechdel test, they shouldn't be criticising it for that. What they should be criticising it from a feminist perspective is that Tessa Thompson says that she won't go back to him just because he's decided that something is wrong, when he decides the whole power calling and the business structure is wrong. She says as well, and this is a really good point, the only reason he discovered it was wrong is because it started to affect him.
Yep, very good.
He
I like
became
that a
a
lot.
victim of it. That again, so that's fantastic.
Continued his point about he sort of like his ideology is largely informed by what's benefiting him at the time.
Yeah, it's malleable, and how that's a danger that we all have. You know, she was really calling him back to light in that situation, but she was also setting boundaries. However, she breaks those boundaries. She does get back with him, despite explaining why it would be wrong to do so.
And nothing changes. She gets back with him as a reward for winning the day. And I think that brings us back nicely around to what began this, which was the final set piece. I think that'll be a nice way to close this off.
Yep.
So Cassius Green. So they're trying to bust the picket line. They successfully bust the picket line. You've got a very nice like portrayal of Blackwater-esque PMC company that's sort of like battering their way through. But they always very specifically reinforces the fact that it's a company and not the state, which I really liked, because it made it seem like the state was just not getting involved in this at all, which is amazing. The horse people arrive, and as well as that, he recruits his old football team, which I thought was really nice. And not only that, he recruits his old football team. Tessa Thompson's cement mannequins come in, so there's like a nice combination of not everything, but of several
talents,
several key factors in the film.
Solidarity forever.
Yeah, exactly. And so they bust the picket. The power callers can't get in, and then they pull sort of like a season 1 Game of Thrones thing on us, where Cassius Green is incarcerated for the entire rest of the climax.
Yeah, so he looks out through the side of a police, or rather, you know, a private police.
And very jarringly from day to night. So it's like the middle of the day. No, it's not even the middle of the day. It's the beginning of the working day, because they're trying to get to work, and then he gets knocked out, put in a van, and he wakes up and it's pitch black. Like, again, like post-box view of a horseman on security guard war, which implies they've been fighting like a 12-hour running battle around that van.
This is an enormous plot hole.
Which is another, maybe not even, but sort of like a one of the many question marks that starts to appear around this ending. And then he's released from the van. The horse people, he like thanks the horse people, and again, like giant horse cock in tow.
Yeah.
They thank him back, and then at that point he is rewarded with Tessa Thompson's affection for having won the day. After that, they're back at the house. They're back at the garage. His garage is decked out with all the nice things from his flat.
I'm gonna stop you there because I want to quickly talk to you about that. It interested me that Boots put that in the film. Considering that, you know, I know what Boots' like political views are on like just bougie shit and like affectations and all of this pointless, you know, furniture. The fact that he went back to his garage, but he kept some of the trappings of his old life for comfort. Don't really know what he was going for.
Didn't reconcile the point there. I agree. I mean, in my opinion, he should never have gone back to the garage. That just seemed really trite. Like, it didn't really mean anything. He didn't need to go back to the garage. He didn't. The thing is, none of it needed to be seen. I didn't need to know that they go back. I assumed they were going to get to. I didn't even need to know they get back together. As we said, that's a problem in itself. Ideally, I didn't need to know where he goes.
Yeah.
And he certainly, and he goes back to. So that's an issue, definitely.
Yeah.
The bigger issue is definitely that he then goes back to his old telemarketing job. And it's not Regalview shouldn't want to employ him because he's led the Horseman Revolution. Regalview also shouldn't exist because of the Horseman Revolution.
Yep.
Maybe. But as well as that, why has he not still got his job as a power cooler, or does he not want to sell slaves? But he's fine selling encyclopedias for the company that sells slaves.
Yeah.
As well as that, why is Tessa Thompson still fine with him working for that company?
Yeah.
But I guess it's because he won the Horseman Revolution. Also, where are the horsemen? How many are there? Does Worry Free even still exist?
That's correct. Yeah.
Like, does the state step in now that Worry Free may or may not have been overthrown? Just
way too many questions,
just
man.
The airlock door gets blown open.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the movie, the plot, Boots, and the audience get sucked out into space. Because the problem is it had the time to tell you, the answers to these questions, but instead, you're right, it showed him going back to a garage.
A really
I do not give a
garage
shit
scene.
about this.
There's also like a minute scene of him reconciling with Cell, is he called?
Squeeze.
No, the other one. Oh no, Squeeze as well, but no.
Oh yeah, his cousin. Yeah, because
cousin.
he gave him his car. It's like, aren't you against this materialism?
Why?
Isn't that the point of this film?
Why is the car a big thing? It lost focus. Is that the right word?
I think
it lost something. It lost its way.
I wonder if Boots knows.
Maybe he'll talk about it. I would love to watch a director's commentary of this.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll do one. That'd be good.
And then, finally, we didn't mention this, but it was earlier set up that he snorted a line of cocaine that he thought suspected would have been the chemical that starts to turn people into horses.
Because it's also ingested in a way very similar to cocaine.
Yes, which was very funny. Then they show he's back in the garage, but he then begins to turn into a horse person, and then the mental resolution to the whole movie is...
So the credits roll after he turns into a horse person, he's got the snout. You get like maybe 2 credits. It wasn't very confident with its post-credit reveal.
No.
You get I think you get Boots Riley's name, and then
jumps straight back into the film.
Straight back into the film, yeah. And so you got Armie Hammer, he's sitting in his plush apartment, and there's like a ding-dong, ding-dong.
Also, why does Armie Hammer, this presumably billionaire or trillionaire... He lives just in Oakland in a mansion.
Yeah, why? Everyone lives in Oakland.
Everything happens... Anyway, yes, he is Ding Dong, and then it's like, hey, this is Cassius Green, sorry to bother you, and he's there with the horses, and I guess he's there to fuck him up and get the serum.
He bashes that door down, and he goes, sorry to bother you, and the film, again, ends, and cuts to sort of like the Rage Against the Machine ending, where it's like...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bust into the hip-hop. Blow any questions you might have out of your head,
and then you're like, yeah, horseman.
Yeah, that's right.
Fuck yeah! I mean, in terms of recommendations, definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll not see anything like it this year.
You will never see a movie like it. That's the thing. It was
more so than Get Out.
Original.
Way
more so than Get Out.
Because at least Get Out used the trappings of several genres. This doesn't even really do that.
No, and that's that's the main positive thing I have to say about it. Even though it may be lacking in certain ways. In fact, I'll be clear. It is lacking in certain ways. It doesn't matter. It's very charming. The horse revolution bit, if you told me at the beginning of that movie that was going to be what happened at the end, I'd think you were smoking crack.
Yeah.
But that is where it went, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I can only say it was quite Kaufman-esque in how well it's prepared you for its plot twist from quite a mundane origins. In a way that, was very well handled. And I guess, as a closing remark, there's that old statement, you won't create anything new if you're afraid to take risks, and if you colour inside the lines, and he definitely didn't do that. And he made something great for it. He made something I'll always remember.
Absolutely.
And he made what I hope is only the first of many things that speaks to our generation, which I think is really sorely lacking. So yeah,
absolutely.
Props to.
We'll recommend. We need to support movies like this. Go out and see it.